One of the simplest game genres to get into, both as a player and developer, is the incremental idle game. You know the ones: Cookie Clicker, Adventure Capitalist, This Any from Poker, You Joker. You start out small and gain resources by doing an action like clicking a cookie, and eventually when you get enough, you can buy some form of upgrade to slowly automate it like a granny here. And as you go on, you amass more resources, more upgrades, and before you know it, you're summoning cookies from hell itself. It's a super easy game to understand, and it's one that I really enjoy. And so, I'm going to be making my own game over the next month or two, and my aim is to release this project on Steam. But what actually is the game? Introducing Incremental Idle Goblin Game, or IIGG for short. In IIGG, you start out with an empty camp in a forest and have to gather resources to build a base worthy of a goblin king. You start by harvesting some wood by clicking on a nearby tree, but that can be really slow and limiting, so you need some friends. Spend some of these resources to upgrade your base's level, and you can then hire a new goblin. Let's call him Greg. The higher level your base is, the more goblins it can support. And this is important because wood isn't the only thing you need to gather. You can tell your goblins to find some berries for food, or rocks and ores for production. All of these resources are used for different things, and over time you'll need more and more of them. But let's not get too ahead of ourselves. What have I actually got in engine right now? Well, some of that at least. Let's start by looking at the visuals. For this project, for some reason, I decided to make a 3D game with 2D assets a la Paper Mario or Don't Starve. So I've barely worked on 3D games before, and I've definitely not worked on a 2D 3D hybrid, or 2.5D if you want to call it that. Everyone has a different definition of what that means, but whatever. And there's a whole lot of extra stuff that comes with adding that new dimension, and most of it is painful. Like most things in Unity, there's more than one way to achieve the same result of having 2D sprites walk around a 3D world. Each of them come with their own pitfalls. You can just use the sprite renderer like normal, but that renders in a different layer to other objects, like the particle system for example. This also doesn't allow the use of 3D lighting by default, and needs a new material for that to work as well. So I could make a new shader and material that does allow depth writing, or, going away from sprite renderers, I could use a textured quad that renders it instead, which works with everything 3D by default. For that though, I've got to make materials for every quad and basically set up my own sprite renderer again. This is where knowing basically nothing about rendering really slows things down. No idea what I'm actually going to do for this project. I'll probably play around with things and see what works best. While setting things up, I used a sprite renderer with a custom shader, which worked well, but I did have trouble with the particle system rendering on top of items, or weird clipping, or other layering nonsense that I still have to crack. Getting this border wall rendered correctly was an absolute pain as well. For that I used Blender and mapped the texture to the inside of a cylinder, which for anyone with basic 3D modeling skills is a cakewalk, but that was a massive battle. It looks cool though, I just need an actual texture to go with it. As the floor was looking rather bland, and a single repeated texture with nothing to break it up doesn't exactly look great, I made a simple grass particle system that spawns grass tufts randomly on the floor, and made a simple shader that warps their UVs to look like they're swaying in the wind. It's funny how a simple addition like that makes such a big difference. I still need to break up the monotonous flooring, but this is a good start. Right, going away from butchering the rendering, let's look at the gameplay. This is what the game will roughly start out like, minus the horrendous programmer art. And if you click on the base in the middle here, you can see the camera swoop in and bring up the base menu. This is where you can hire your pesky goblins. Except to begin with, you need to get wood for your first guy. Wait. Just back out of the menu and fly over to some trees, like this one nearby. Give it a few clicks, and there we go. That's enough for our first goblin. If I go back into the base, I can buy a goblin, and he will now start collecting some wood for me. But to begin with, he is very slow, so give him a bit of time. Okay, this poor chap has been running around this place for a bit now, and he's got enough resources to start looking at the upgrade tree. If I press E, it brings up a menu and you can see all the wonderful upgrades in the game. Now this works like a standard progression tree. You buy the first one, that unlocks a few more, which unlocks a few more, you get it. At the moment, these upgrades are all rather basic, like adding +2 to movement or a 0.2 multiplier increase to their harvesting rate, but as I get more into development, I plan on adding a few more exciting ones along the way, as sort of big milestones. I made this upgrade system very basic, and it's very easy to add a new upgrade into the game. So let's show that off now. If I duplicate one of the upgrades here, drag it along the line, and place it down, I can go into the inspector here on the right and hook it all up. The first thing it needs is a brand new upgrade scriptable object. So in my data folder, I can make a new one, and there's currently two types, a generic upgrade or a resource upgrade. Only difference here is the resource upgrade has a setting to choose which resource it applies to. So wood, berries, whatever. Let's create a normal upgrade, rename the file, and I can now fill in the info. The name is God Mode, the description can be whatever, so here's the entire Darth Plagueis story for example, and then comes the stat upgrades. So this is for the goblins, so they have move speed. Let's make it a 5 times multiplier and a 10 stat increase for their harvest rate. And in the cost list, let's make it 5,000 berries. And at the end, it applies to units as it's for the goblins. If I go back to the UI button, set the data in there, and then add the previous upgrade to the requirements, that's all done. Now, if I go into the game and open up the menu, you can see the upgrade here, God Mode, and all the stats it provides and how much it costs. And because I set the previous upgrade as a requirement, it not only stays locked until that one is bought, it also draws this simple line to indicate that it's a requirement. And that is how the upgrades work. I just need to do that process about 1,000 times and make them balanced and fun. Doesn't sound too hard. So now let's look at how the game is going to progress beyond just making your resources go up. At the beginning, you're going to have a tiny base and can only harvest resources that are close by. And at major milestones in the game, your base will be upgraded and will open up a wider area of the map. To begin with, you'll only have wood in the first section, then discover berries in the next section, then rocks further away, and then finally ores right at the edge of the map by the mountains. Most of the resources in an area will be the temporary ones, with only one permanent fixture per type to begin with in an area, which would limit your production speed, but towards the end of the game, you'll be able to spawn in more limitless resources, meaning goblins can harvest all of them at once. With every base upgrade, the permanent fixtures in the previous tier will be removed, so goblins have to travel further, but that's part of the trade-off of moving to the next level. You spend a lot of resources to reach that milestone, it slows you down a bit to begin with, but then allows you to speed up production way beyond what you could normally do. I'm not too sure what the expected time frame is for the gameplay, like how long it would take you to complete the game with all unlocks, without it just becoming an infinite game of number go up, so that's something I have to work on when it comes to balancing all of the values. In an incremental game like this, it's important to find the right balance of slowing the player down enough so they don't just gain all of the upgrades instantly, but not too slow that it's just boring. I'll see what I can do. And finally, there's fog around the map blocking your progression. When you reach milestone upgrades and your base expands, this will be pushed outwards, unlocking new resources, extra interactions, and a few bonuses that I'll include later down the line. I spent a little bit playing around with this fog effect and I think it looks pretty cool. It's made up of a circular particle system, which shrinks after every upgrade by simply reducing the radius thickness, which makes all the particles spawn towards the edge, as well as a basic circular sprite covering the floor underneath and a mask in the middle to cut out the playable area. This is all controlled by a single script and sets all the values accordingly, and looks really nice as the playable area spreads. As the fog is there to block progression, all of the resources inside the fog are disabled and have their sprite color darkened to match the area. I'm really happy with the effect so far, it really adds a lot to the game's visuals. And that is IIGG. Like I said, it's been really fun to work on something new and small scale, and hopefully it won't be too long before there's a playable game that I can release on Steam. I'm obviously not expecting huge numbers for it, and I haven't even got a Steam page set up yet, so I can't push you to go wishlist it, but I've never released a game on Steam before, and it just seems like a cool thing to do. The game will not be expensive, so don't worry about that. It will be very reasonably priced, say $80 in a battle pass, or maybe just a handful of coins and buttons should do it. But I'll get that up at some point, and I'll let you all know as soon as it's available. I know the game doesn't look like much just yet, but it will do once I replace all of my programmer art with some lovely looking sprites made by an actual artist. You can already see that the character's got a bit of a glow up, and the rest of the game will follow suit. I plan on getting another few devlogs out for this project, so look out for those. But for now, let's switch over to everyone's favourite, Subscriber Wars. While everyone battles it out in the arena, I want to say thank you to everyone that's played my Lego Loco remake so far. I know there's been some issues here and there, I've tried to fix as much as possible, and don't worry, I will be finishing that project off, not done just yet, but I just needed a little break to work on something else. The remake has already had over 2,000 players, and it's just been great to see everyone enjoying the nostalgia hit together. I want to give a shout out to all my Patreon members for their support, helping me out and becoming VIPs in the arena. So if you see a little gold border around someone's name, that's that. For all the paid supporters, past and present, you can get IIGG for free as an extra thank you, so if that interests you, check it out at the link in the description. I've been posting a short weekly update over there to show off everything I'm working on, so if you're looking for a bit of extra content, that's another reason to have a look. With all that said, thank you for watching. Congratulations to Extension for winning this battle. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Let me know what you think about IIGG, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.